More than 80% of the additional 2,000 medical school places will be distributed to schools located outside the capital region, while the rest will go to those in Gyeonggi-do province and Incheon. The already severe confrontation between the government and doctors is likely to worsen. North Korea claims success in a ground test of a solid fuel engine for a new longer-range hypersonic missile. Its leader Kim Jong-un says the regime has completed years of the strategic weapons development plan. A baseball season opener coming up this evening between the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres for the historic MLB World Tour Seoul Series. We take a closer look at what to take away and how fans are reacting. It's March 20th, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The government today unveiled how it is allocating the additional 2,000 medical school places. More than 80% are being distributed to schools located outside the capital region. None has been allocated to those in Seoul. Doctors are strongly resisting the plan. Our Kim Bo-kyung stirs us off.
Even with doctors strongly against the medical school quota expansion, the government has pushed through with its plan. On Wednesday, Education Minister Lee Ju-ho announced more details about how the additional 2,000 places will be allocated. This came following an address by Prime Minister Han Duk-soo, who further stressed the need to increase the enrollment quota.
When considering various factors such as changing demographics, changes to society and development in medicine, we thought it would be fundamentally impossible to provide proper medical care to people without increasing the number of medical personnel. An additional 2,000 doctors is the minimum required to tackle the doctor shortage.
2,000 additional places are mainly being distributed to medical schools outside the capital area, with around 82%, that is 1,639. State-run universities were guaranteed to have 200 places, while smaller medical schools that had fewer than 50 places have been allocated at least 100, to make sure the healthcare infrastructure is strengthened in areas outside the capital region. The remaining 361 seats went to medical schools in Gyeonggi-do province and Incheon in order to narrow the gap in numbers between Seoul and other areas within the capital region. Based on the announcement, each university will have their new quotas reflected in their admission announcements for the 2025 academic year, which will be released to students in around May. Doctors' groups are strongly resisting the plan. 3 groups, the Korean Medical Association, the Korea Interns and Residents Association, and the Medical Professors Association of Korea, are reportedly going to have a rare online meeting on Wednesday night to go over possible measures against the government's plan. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea and Britain will cooperate closely to promote democracy in the world and address security concerns surrounding the Korean Peninsula. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol's office on Wednesday, following the South Korean leaders meeting with UK Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden, who's in Seoul for the 3rd Summit for Democracy. They voiced their support to continue expanding cooperation in diverse areas, from national security to climate and advanced technologies, reflecting on the Downing Street Accord reached in November last year. Dowden says the UK puts greater importance on strengthening relations with Korea, which shares common values of freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. In light of South Korea's 51st Commerce Day today, President Yoon has pledged to finish the government's labor reform plan and scrap outdated regulations. The aim is to make sure the country matches up with global standards. The pledge came as part of a special lecture in the business district of Yeouido in Seoul. Yoon also noted that big corporations need to join in when it comes to tackling key social issues, such as the low birth rate, saying freedom comes with responsibility and a sense of ethics. He also praised the work of business leaders, saying their predecessors are true heroes of the nation's modern history. Among the attendees were Samsung Chairman Lee Jae-yong, SK's Choi Tae-won, and Hyundai Motors' Chung Wi-sun. Beyond the borders, North Korea claims to have successfully conducted a ground test of a solid fuel engine for longer-range hypersonic missiles. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung tells us what this means.
North Korea has claimed success in a ground test of a solid fuel engine for a new medium to long-range hypersonic missile. The North Korean Central News Agency reported Wednesday that Pyongyang conducted the test at a launching station near the west coast the day before, under the supervision of leader Kim Jong-un. Kim reportedly expressed great satisfaction with what he called the successful completion of the Strategic Weapons Development Plan presented back in 2021. Hypersonic missiles are among the list of weapons Kim vowed to develop within 5 years after the plan was announced. The regime conducted its first ground test of the engine last November. In January this year, the North test-fired a solid-fuel IRBM tipped with a hypersonic warhead. Experts say Tuesday's engine test was carried out as part of efforts to correct flaws discovered then.
The launch in January did not have a sufficient flight range despite it being a medium to long-range missile. They had to verify once again that it can fly up to a range of about 3,500 kilometers. So it appears that they increased the combustion time of the rocket's first stage to increase the flight range.
The North appears to have conducted the engine test on the ground instead of test-firing a missile this time to avoid tensions with Japan.
North Korea is currently showing relative restraint in firing in the direction of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Although we still have to wait and see, we can see that this is ultimately a sign of caution and consideration in preparation for future dialogue with Japan.
Hypersonic missiles are designed to travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound and often maneuver at relatively low altitudes, making them harder to detect and intercept. While North Korea's ICBMs are mainly designed to reach the U.S. mainland, this IRBM can be seen as a weapon system with the main purpose of targeting U.S. military bases in Guam or Japan. Eyes are on whether the North will soon test launch a hypersonic medium to long-range missile equipped with Tuesday's newly tested engine. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The Gaeseong Industrial District Foundation officially shuttered its doors this afternoon. The state-run foundation supported South Korean companies operating in the industrial complex near the North Korean city of Gaeseong. Its board of directors passed a motion to dissolve the foundation and presented a liquidation plan. Support for South Korean companies that operated in the complex will now be provided by the South North Korea Exchanges and Cooperation Support Association. Founded in 2007, the foundation suspended operations in 2016 in response to Pyongyang's continued nuclear and missile provocations. South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik today met with his Iraqi counterpart, Thabet Mohammed Saeed al-Abbasi, who is currently visiting Korea. The Iraqi minister has reportedly expressed hope of deploying South Korea's cutting-edge weapons, saying they would help strengthen Iraq's national defense. The minister also met officials from the Korea aerospace industries, reportedly to discuss the potential purchase of Korea's utility helicopter, Suryeon. Kai supplied 24 F-A-50 light attack aircraft to Iraq in 2013, but is yet to sign any export deals for Suryeon. Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to reaffirm his commitment to allies, including his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, as part of his diplomatic priorities, having secured a 5th term in office. A summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un is also believed to be in the cards. Our Moon Hae-ryun covers these prospects.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will travel to China for talks with Xi Jinping in May. According to a Reuters report on Tuesday, this could be the first overseas trip of his new presidential term after being re-elected on Sunday. The Kremlin declined to comment, but with Russia strengthening its ties with China since its invasion of Ukraine, it's unsurprising that Putin has made Beijing his first stop. Xi also visited Russia for his first overseas trip following the start of his 3rd consecutive term in March last year, with the reciprocated gesture set to come after Putin's formal inauguration around May 7th. Putin reaffirmed Moscow's close ties with Beijing on Sunday, stating he would continue to develop their relationship in the coming years. The two leaders have met over 40 times, with the most recent meeting in October, when Putin was the guest of honor at China's Belt and Road Summit in Beijing. Trade and military ties between China and Russia have been particularly strong in recent years, with Chinese customs data showing that trade between the two sides hit over $218 billion between January and November last year. The Chinese Foreign Vice Minister also confirmed the strength of bilateral ties by claiming them to be the best in history during a visit to Moscow last month. Attention is also on whether Putin will be visiting North Korea, with observers predicting that such a trip could come in the second half of the year. Following the North Korea-Russia summit in September last year, Pyongyang's foreign minister visited Moscow in January to discuss another potential visit. A Kremlin spokesperson said that Putin's schedule for a visit to North Korea is being coordinated through diplomatic channels, but there were no plans to visit before and immediately after the presidential election. Analysts suspect that Putin is treading carefully amid reports of an arms trade between the two sides that violate UN Security Council resolutions. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
A South Korean chemical tanker carrying 11 crew members has sunk near an island located southwest of Japan. 9 members have reportedly been rescued among a crew that was made up of 2 South Koreans, a Chinese national, and 8 Indonesians. However, no details as to the nationalities of the rescued crew members have been made public. The Japanese Coast Guard said it received a call from the chemical tanker at about 7 a.m. on Wednesday, saying that the ship was tilting due to rough weather before it later completely capsized. The Coast Guard has sent boats and aircraft to the area for rescue operations. With Korea's 22nd general election just 20 days away, candidate registrations will begin tomorrow, essentially marking the start of the election race. For more, our National Assembly correspondent Shin Ha-young joins me in the studio. Welcome, Ha-young.
Great to be here, Jungmin.
So, Ha-young, tell me, it looks like both the ruling and opposition parties are now in the final stages of candidate nominations.
You're absolutely right, Jungmin. The nomination process for both ruling and opposition parties is nearing its end, adding to the election buzz. And starting Thursday, candidate registration will take place over the 2 days from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And personal details, including asset declarations, military service status, and criminal records of registered candidates will be publicly available through the National Election Commission's website. And meanwhile, both the ruling and opposition parties already formed their election campaign committees last week to oversee their election strategies and campaign. The People Power Party's committee emphasized the importance of winning in metropolitan areas, while the Democratic Party of Korea highlighted the 4 key themes: innovation, integration, public participation, and judgment of the Yoon administration.
And how are these parties preparing for the upcoming election? And I wonder if there's any specific pledges that's worth noticing.
Well, the 2 parties each announced their 10 key pledges for the coming up election, with a shared emphasis on tackling the country's low birth rate. The PPP outlined its key pledges, focusing on 3 primary agendas: addressing the low birth rate, narrowing the widening wealth gap, and addressing climate change. And the party pledged to establish a new ministry which would focus on the country's population, create a special account to generate funds to combat the declining birth rate, and introduce mandatory 1-month paid leave for fathers. And on the other hand, the DP's commitments are centered around 4 major objectives: enhancing people's livelihoods, providing hope for the future, protecting democracy, and fostering peace. And the party's focus lies in extending financial assistance to newly wed couples, such as providing public rental housing to couples with more than 1 child and offering low-rate loans regardless of income level. And for this year's election, which regions should we be paying attention to? Well, there are several regions to keep our eyes on for the upcoming election, but among them, cities with major chip makers plants, including SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics in Gyeonggi-do Province, known as the Semiconductor Belt, are emerging as pivotal swing regions. Parties have been announcing chip-related pledges and nominating influential candidates in these areas. And the PPP has appealed for support for the government and the party to provide stable support for the chip industry. Take a listen.
The semiconductor belt is essentially a creation of the People Power Party. We are the ruling party, and President Yoon has made a lot of diplomatic efforts regarding semiconductor issues.
The ruling party pledged full support for the government's plan to create a mega chip cluster in Gyeonggi-do province by 2047 and simplify the process of chip development and investment permits. And meanwhile, the main opposition party has committed to creating an ecosystem for a semiconductor powerhouse through regulatory reforms and tax incentives. And these include extending the tax deduction deadline for investments in national strategic technologies and establishing so-called semiconductor megacities in the southern and eastern regions of Gyeonggi-do province. Take a listen.
The semiconductor industry is the key engine for South Korea's economy. With the increasing significance of chips, competition is escalating, transforming into a national-level competition.
And the election is just about 3 weeks away. What are watchers saying about this year's election?
Well, this year's election has been framed as a choice between judging the opposition-led National Assembly and judging the government. The PPP is determined to reshape the composition of South Korea's parliament, which is currently dominated by the main opposition party. And on the other hand, as the Yoon administration enters its third year in office, the DP is determined to maintain its dominance to act as a counterbalance to the ruling party and the Yoon administration. And meanwhile, the emergence of third parties is also regarded as a significant factor to consider in this year's election landscape. And after the two-day registration, candidates can run their official election campaign from next Thursday until April 9, the day before the general election. So we'll have more updates later.
It's a high-stakes election. All right, thanks for your report today, Hayoung.
My pleasure.
Major League Baseball's first ever match in South Korea starts this evening. Our Choi Soo-hyung reveals what to look forward to and a special connection between the MLB and fans in the country.
This year, the MLB's list of hosts for its World Tour Series included South Korea for the first time. And a venue in Seoul was selected for the opening games. The Los Angeles Dodgers take on the San Diego Padres in the capital's Gocheok Skydome on Wednesday and Thursday. Both teams are very familiar with South Korean baseball fans due to Park Chan-ho, the legendary baseball player who in 1994 became the first South Korean ever to play in the MLB.
Park was invited to throw out the ceremonial first pitch in Wednesday's game because of his remarkable connection with both the Dodgers and the Padres.
Park excelled with the Dodgers for 9 years, winning 84 games, and then also played 2 years with the Padres, where he currently works as a special advisor. His successful career enabled many Korean players, including Ryu Hyun-jin and Chu Shin-soo, to join the MLB. Kim Ha-sung, who has given excellent performances with the Padres since 2021, is a key player to watch. He delighted Korean fans with 2 home runs during Monday's exhibition game against the LG Twins. In Wednesday's match, the Dodgers' Shohei Ohtani starts the game as a designated hitter, while the Padres' Kim is expected to start as a shortstop, setting the stage for a showdown between the players from Japan and South Korea. Tickets for Wednesday's match sold out in just 15 minutes. Thousands of people have gathered at the arena with big expectations.
We have some of the biggest names in baseball right now, so I'm looking for a really good game tonight.
Shohei Ohtani was a big name in California, Los Angeles, the LA Dodgers. Obviously, we didn't get him in the beginning, but now that we have him, our expectation is World Series.
Oh, they'll win. This is a big rivalry. The Padres beat the Dodgers in the playoffs a few years ago, and we've got momentum, and we got these 2 games.
After the Seoul Series, the MLB tour will move on to Mexico City in April and London in June. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
South Korean boy band Stray Kids will be headlining this year's Lollapalooza in Chicago. The annual festival's organizers announced on Tuesday local time that the group will be one of the headlining acts alongside Tyler, the Creator, and others. Last year, Stray Kids became the first K-pop act to headline Lollapalooza Paris, a spin-off of Chicago's one of the longest-running musical festivals in the United States. The 4-day festival will take place from August 1st. Today is the fourth season of the spring called Chungbun on the lunar calendar, but cold winds have been blowing even in the middle of the day. The weather has been chilly all day long with this last cold snap, so there are some places where the snow or rain from yesterday has melted. This cold snap will continue until tomorrow. The temperature in Seoul tomorrow morning will be 0 degrees, feeling colder than today. Chilly air will ease from the day after tomorrow, and the temperatures will rise sharply. This morning, a dry weather warning was issued in Seoul for the first time this spring. Today, gusty winds of about 25 meters per second have been blowing around the coast, and strong winds also have been in place in other inland areas. As there is high risk of wildfires, please be careful. Tomorrow morning will be cold in most areas. Seoul, Gwangju, and Daegu, 0 degrees. Gyeongju and Daejeon, -1 degree. However, at least 11 degrees will be seen all over the country throughout the day. The weather will be very fickle all day with a steep rise and fall in temperatures. There is frequent rain in the forecast as well. Another round of rain is expected across the country between Friday and Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.